All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here today with Drew Dinsick. We're going to bring on Vaughn Dalzell at V-Money Sports to talk college basketball today. We're going to talk about a surging Alabama team, Michigan State, who are anti-surging. We'll talk about St. John's, and then Drew and I will close off the show talking about the Cavs and Thunder in the association. But Vaughn, let's start with Alabama, who are number 2 in the latest AP poll. They're plus 140 to make the Final Four, 9-1 to win the national title. Are you buying or selling this surge that they're on? And is there any way to bet this team?
I mean, I am buying into the surge they're on, but I don't believe that it's really worth grabbing at these prices right now as far as a national championship or Final Four odds. Drew and I talked a lot the past couple of years about Alabama and their love for the three-point line. They've fallen a little less in love with it this year, but they still like to shoot it. 34% of their points are coming from the three-point line. But when you look at the big game against Auburn this weekend, I mean, that's the one that's really going to turn the tables in terms of odds, right? Auburn's, minus 200 to minus 300 to win the SEC right now. And if they lose to Alabama, that's going to go ahead and flip-flop. And we just saw Auburn minus 750 as of last week before they lost to Florida. So the main things that bother me about Alabama is 12th and 15th when it comes to offensive and defensive turnover percentage in conference play. That is not good at all. Auburn, the best three-point defense, and they also force a ton of turnovers, and they don't turn the ball over. So I like Auburn over Alabama this weekend and in the futures market. I still think the Tigers are the best team in the country, and Alabama, a team that's surging, will probably get caught slipping on Saturday, even at home against Auburn, in my opinion. If that's anywhere near a 1 or 2 point spread, I'm all on the Tigers.
I was just going to ask you that. I'm projecting that one effectively as a pick 'em.
Yeah. They got to get the dub here in this spot, in my opinion. I mean, Auburn has a 3-game homestand next, Arkansas, Georgia, and Ole Miss. And when you look at KenPom, it gives them 87 and 94% chance to win those games, Jay. So you really need Auburn to go ahead and get this game, in my opinion, against Alabama. They're back on track, full confidence, and then they just literally roll the rest of the SEC field. I think that's the only competition. Kentucky and A&M, these type of teams, I don't think will contend with Auburn. So it's clearly Tigers on Saturday and moving forward.
Okay. Player of the year market. Cooper Flagg is minus 275. Broom is plus 175. Mark Sears is 200-1. How do you handicap this market at the moment?
This is crazy. I mean, when we talked about this, 2 weeks ago, Cooper Flagg was minus 750 or minus 500 in that department. So, since Duke lost, odds are now coming back into Broom's favor since he's returned from injury. But the best time to get Broom has already passed. Like when he was out for 3 games, you could have got him at 3-1, 4-1 odds. Now at plus 150, plus 175. You're going up against who is the best player in the country, who is and probably will be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. It's tough to get behind Broom here. I mean, I think Auburn is the better team. Duke matches up very well with Auburn statistically and defensively. Those teams almost mirror each other. But I just think Flagg is still undoubtedly the better player and the bigger impact player. So if this continues to trend down and we're getting, anything under minus 200 for Flagg soon, I'm going to hop on that, to be honest with you. I think that is, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani type MVP odds right now. Like we're starting to get to a criteria where it should be 2-3 units on this bet just to return 1 or 1.5 because the odds should not be this close.
What a great throwback. You talked me into some Shohei Ohtani MVP that definitely helped backfill some election losses. So I appreciate you for that. The college basketball landscape right now feels very in flux to me. All of these teams at the top look like they have pretty clear flaws. Alabama, Auburn is going to be fascinating this week because I agree with you. I think Auburn's the right side there. I would project them as a 1-point favorite. Like you said, like we may be getting a point or two in that one. So that'll be pretty fun. I got to ask you one question about the SEC in general. Our guy T-Bomb projecting 14 SEC teams. And I know we're in a new world with conference realignment, but like really every SEC team besides LSU and South Carolina might ultimately make the dance.
I mean, that's tough to say because you look at Arkansas and Georgia, Oklahoma. I mean, those are the 3 teams I'd probably have on the bubble as of right now. You look down at like the Big Ten, for instance. You look at those teams near the bottom of the Big Ten, like the Penn States, the Washington, Northwestern, Minnesota, like. Those SEC schools are definitely much better than the Big Ten ones. We're talking about the bottom of the conferences, but getting 14 schools in the conference, I don't know if that is going to better college basketball, Drew, to be honest with you. 14 out of 16 teams, it just seems like a little much here. There's got to be some type of cap to this, but at the same time, the SEC is undoubtedly the best conference in college basketball right now, and they are the deepest conference in college basketball. So, I mean, I hear you, but I just can't get down with the conversations of the SEC could have 4 or 3 number 1 seeds. I just don't think that's the way to go about this either for college basketball. But I do think Auburn will be a number 1 seed. I think your Duke Blue Devils will be a 1 seed in the ACC. And we'll see Alabama and Florida fight for a 1 seed, but likely one of those 2 will be a 2 seed. But SEC is deep, man. Just 14 out of 16. That might be a little bit too deep, too much for my taste.
Well, I'm good to hear your opinion on this, but it's also fascinating because if there's no like clear, overwhelming, like, oh yeah, easy call, 1 seed, like, let's say Auburn loses a coin flip game to Alabama. Let's say they lose the SEC, but then they win the SEC tournament. It's still going to be muddy enough that you may not get, especially out of, it might be a very balanced draw is kind of where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a tough task for the committee to put together a bracket that's not just a bunch of SEC schools meeting relatively early or a bunch of Big Ten schools, as there is currently projected 10 Big Ten schools that are likely to make the dance. This is sort of an unexpected kind of outcome of conference realignment, where it's just like 14 SEC, 10 Big Ten, and 8 Big 12 right now projected to land in the field. Is kind of like, oh wow, okay, I guess this is just the way this is going. But there's a couple Big Ten schools I'd love to pick your brain on, and they are both coming off of losses that were, I wouldn't say predictable necessarily, but kind of, I thought, kind of displayed some of the flaws that we're talking about. And the 2 teams that I'd like to highlight here are the number 7 ranked Purdue Boilermakers and the other number 11 Michigan State Spartans. Mm-hmm. Is there a team between those 2 that you would say is especially dangerous and or especially vulnerable once we get into kind of one and done tournament setting?
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback on what I said, a week or 2 ago on here about 2 weeks ago about Michigan State, because they were actually the favorite in this market. We talked about them at plus 110 to plus 125. We talked about the road that they have in February, and it's going to be a tough one, and the stretch that the games that they're going through right now. And we kind of see USC figured them out. I hit on USC against Michigan State. I did live bet Michigan State against Indiana, but Mike Woodson kind of ripped off USC, used that zone, and figured the Spartans out. So the Spartans are a team that, why they've been overperforming, in my opinion, why they've been phenomenal from a defensive perspective. Offensively, they just can't shoot threes. Like when you rank 351st in the country, you don't even make 30% of your threes. You're going to struggle. So when teams can go to the zone and throw you off your game automatically, it does not make you a dangerous team, in my opinion, in March. The fact that they have Izzo makes them more dangerous than their play style, in my opinion. But Purdue is a team that I think they might be better than last year. And I keep getting more warmed up to this idea of it because Braden Smith has been amazing. Fletcher Lawyer, still a great shooter. Trey Kaufman-Red has been awesome as the big man for them. They've had this trio, and the defense has been the turnaround, Drew. I mean, they are forcing turnovers, best in the Big Ten right now. And I just think that the Purdue Boilermakers have kind of what you look at statistically or on paper as a team that could make a deep run as far as an Elite Eight or a Final Four. So the Big Ten, I mean, I love the Big Ten. I think they have a lot of great teams, but it's really no one that stands out as I'm going to cut down the nets this year. And Purdue might be the best bet out of the Big Ten for that market, which is crazy since there's no Zach Edey. But I think the Boilermakers may be even better offensively, especially defensively. They are better this season.
Okay, Purdue 35-1 to win the national title. Before we get to St. John's, the Premier League returns this weekend as Everton attempts to win its 4th straight match when they face Crystal Palace. Coverage begins Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. We're recording on Wednesday afternoon, about an hour before Everton hopefully get absolutely stomped by Liverpool. That's what I'm cheering for. But let's pivot from the Merseyside to St. John's. Vaughn, St. John's, they're minus 400 to win the Big East in the regular season, which is probably not going to be an appetizing price to most. But sometimes the value to be had in these futures markets is when a massive favorite isn't massive enough. Do you think that St. John's are more than the 80% chance to win the Big East in the regular season that this price implies?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking over their schedule, and there's not a whole lot of spots that you would sit here and definitively say St. John's should go out and lose. There are those trap games, obviously, that could happen here, but minus 400, I don't want to lay that. I would probably look elsewhere. I mean, Creighton or UConn would be my look. UConn still has a long, long way to go, but they got a big victory this week that put them back on the map in the conference. My main problem with St. John's and why I'm not buying into them for the Final Four or the Natty, or even when we come to the Big East tournament, they're going to probably be a fade for me. It's a 3-point line. I mean, since the start of January, since the start of 2025, and mind you, this is 2025, Jay and Drew we're talking about. In basketball, you shoot the 3 in 2025. They are dead last in the entire country in 3-point percentage, 23.7%. They are worse than Mississippi Valley State, the Deltas. All right, whatever, the Delta Dogs or whatever they are, Delta Devils, excuse me. But, offensive or defensive efficiency-wise, they're number one in the country in that span. So they have a great coach. They have a great defense. They force turnovers, but offensively, there's so much St. John's still lacks, in my opinion, and they're taking advantage of a weaker Big East conference, which we've talked about multiple times on this show. So St. John's looks great now, but I don't want any parts of them, any value on this team.
Yeah, Jay and I have come to calling them the Orlando Magic of college basketball. It has gotten that brutal from 3, but at least if you're not shooting the 3 well, they're tacking away from their weakness because they don't get up 3s at all either. That is even astounding, which I completely agree with you. Makes them sort of, they're probably going to get a 5 seed.
Yeah,
the committee's going to give them a dangerous 12 from the SEC or something crazy like that, and they'll be the proverbial 12 versus 5 pick against, I would guess. But interesting. Poor St. John's. Anyway, the general kind of prices across the board here: $550 for them to make the Final Four, $2,500 win the national championship, feel absurd to me. And I guess, is there sort of a projected 12 seed you could see, or just any mid-major long shot that you could see getting slotted against the likes of a St. John's, or against maybe one of the overrated, major schools that we ought to be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, I had no plans on talking about this team, but when you said St. John's is a 5 seed who would beat them as a 12 seed, I'm like, let's see the Akron Zips in that spot. The Akron Zips are playing the same style as St. John's really offensively. They love to run up and down the court. But they are a 3-point shooting team, though. That's the biggest difference, is that they can knock down the 3. So that's a team, that I might be interested in if they win their conference tournament, the Akron Zips. But I really think that two of the sleepers worth, mentioning and talking about come out of the Mountain West Conference. Utah State and New Mexico this season.
Yeah.
That's a conference that's steadily been getting better, climbing from, 9th, 8th to 7th best over the past few years in KenPom and Bartorvik's ratings. But New Mexico, elite defensive numbers. I mean, top 25 team there on the defensive net rating. 20th in rebounding, and then you look at Utah State, they're pretty much the offensive juggernaut of that conference. They rank 21st in the country for net rating, and they're shooting almost 60% from 2, ranking 6th best in the country. So they're a team that just beats up opponents inside. So, I'm looking at some of the conferences, and I'm thinking the Mountain West might be one, Drew. That's, there's 11, 12, 13 seeds that could knock off somebody. And it's Utah State and New Mexico right now, in my opinion. But, the Akron Zips might be a fun one, too, if they get
Here we go again with the Mountain West. Let's do it.
Yeah, every year.
This is the year they're going to finally do something, right?
Yeah. Who are we kidding? It's a waste of time.
No, but if they should be, if New Mexico should be a 9 or 10 seed and they get underseeded as a 12 against the St. John's, brand name, Rick Pitino brand name, let's go. That sounds ideal to me.
Yeah. And I mean, their conference is coming a long way. They're now ranked higher than the West Coast Conference, the Gonzaga, St. Mary, San Francisco. So that conference is up and coming. But yeah, Drew, they still just got to get some covers and wins in the tournament. It's been tough.
Okay. Well, started with Alabama, and we ended up with the Mountain West Conference, a well-traveled journey in the world of college sports. Vaughn, thank you so much for stopping by. Can you tell people what you're working on this week?
Yeah, man, I'll just be on Peacock Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays the rest of February and moving forward in March. So check out all the games. And, I hope you guys enjoyed Super Bowl weekend down at Radio Row. It looked like a good time. So, hopefully the weather is a little better up here. Oh, for Drew at least, not Jay.
Yeah,
sorry, man.
Well, the Eagles won, so it was an incredible time.
Yeah. Drew also went from an Alabama Mountain West Conference journey himself, but in reverse, with the Mountain West Conference Thursday night, seeing Josh Allen win MVP, and then an Alabama-style Sunday, seeing the Eagles triumph and win the Super Bowl. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining, Vaughn. We'll speak to you soon, man.
See you guys.
Cool. Okay. Watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Barrios. They cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out talking about the two best teams in the NBA this year by record, at least. That is the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are 43-9 as we're recording, and the Cavs, who are 43-10. There is a most regular seasons wins market, which is effectively a head-to-head between these two teams, unless the Celtics want to get really weird. But the Thunder are minus 300 favorites at MGM. The Cavs are plus 240. Both of these teams have kind of away tilted remaining schedules, particularly the Cavs, who play 17 of their remaining 29 on the road. The Thunder play 16 of their remaining 30 on the road. They both have middle of the pack schedules remaining. Do you think there's any bet to be made?
Boy, I really wanted to come on here and make a case for the Cavs. Should we just talk João Fonseca in the Buenos Aires Open instead? No, but I can't make a case for the Cavs here. I think that not only are the Thunder clearly the better team, better regular season team, and honestly could be upgraded once we see Holmgren reintegrated. They also have, just in general, to me, the schedule that lends itself to being able to take care of business against weak opponents, sprinkled in with a couple of true sharpen your knife for the playoff type of tests. March 9th and 10th, they get back-to-backs against the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets come into town, by the way, with a pretty decent rest disadvantage in those spots. And I think I would expect that, the Thunder kind of give you, kind of a little bit of this is who we intend to be come playoff time. And then maybe even more exciting as you kind of look at their schedule, particularly considering that the market right now is treating the Lakers as the second choice in the West. Back-to-backs against the Lakers, also in OKC, April the 6th and April the 8th. So two kind of nice home back-to-backs against the other kind of teams that matter in the West, in spots where they have rest advantage. I think that sets up pretty well for the Thunder to, kind of take care of the difficult head-to-heads on the remaining schedule. And then everything else, they are going to be 10-point favorites on average across all of these contests. So I don't know that I'm ready to call Thunder win in by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure they'll stub their toe on some random back-to-back on the road here, but I don't see very many losses remaining. And I don't see very many kind of especially bad or troubling or difficult spots. Wednesday, March 12th, where they had to go at the Celtics after having home 2 games in a row on back-to-back nights against the Nuggets, is maybe the only one where I would be like, okay, they're going to be meaningful dogs. Every other game, they're going to be basically favored from here in if they are, starting their guys. And I don't think that there is any real likelihood that anyone's going to put pressure on them for the 1 seed, which would, kind of say, well, okay, let's not get crazy here. They still have a 3-game roadie to complete the season. They have a couple of games left against teams who are going to need to bring their absolute A+ game to avoid playoff or play-in elimination or play-in seeding or playoff elimination altogether in the likes of the Kings and the Suns. But I don't know. This team is not this Thunder team is not the type of team that has either wilted in the face of really difficult situational spots this year, or really, kind of been exposed, just by, kind of looking ahead, looking past their opponents. So my projection for them is they're going to get to 68 wins. The upper end for me is 70 for them, which again sounds insane considering they've already got 9, but this schedule is set up well for them to do something special.
Yeah, I think, and I've been using this line a lot the past week or so, doing various appearances and stuff, but the question that I always ask looking at any market is, why would the market be wrong? Why would this most regular season wins market be wrong? Not a lot of reasons why it would be. It's largely just taking these teams, their projected win totals, and then simming it out from there. So would there be any reason why these projected win totals are wrong? Like, the normal reasons they're wrong are that it's not baking in enough around schedule or any kind of downside variance with injury vulnerability. And the thing is these teams, like, they just have such great depth. Like, they're not really outside of the Thunder losing SGA, any injury across these 2 teams, they can largely withstand and still be, very, very good. Like, if Donovan Mitchell went down for 3 weeks, the Cavs are still, an above average, pretty good team with their depth. So I don't think either of these teams are particularly vulnerable. Talking about the Thunder and their upper end outcomes, that you said that, you've got them at 68 wins. I've spoken to a couple of people who are very high on the Thunder as well. And I think that the natural kind of gravitation is down from that spot, just because there are probably, like, there's 7.5 games clear of the 2 seed. Like, they're probably going to rest guys at some point, and that's just going to naturally pull it down. But if they can ride some luck in those games where they do sit Shea and they do, say they get to 68, 69 wins, and say the Cavs lose the 1 seed, which is plus 350 in the market, that the Celtics would get the 1 seed. Do you think Mark Daigneault could go back-to-back Coach of the Year? A couple of people have texted me about that. The idea that he's like 40 to 1 in the market.
I really wanted to ask you that because I was looking at that number too. That's a big number. Like, if you want to try to prey on like the upside of this team, because there are not many back-to-backs left for them, and the ones that are actually, I think I'm Friday, February 21st. They got to go from at the Timberwolves to at the Jazz. Okay, rest Shea and Jalen Williams in that game. They're still winning. Like, I do not fear any of these schedule spots that look, especially troubling. They got a back-to-back on Monday, February 24th against the Timberwolves. Well, guess who they play on Sunday? The Timberwolves. The back-to-back against the Nuggets, they play the Nuggets beforehand. So it's like every kind of real nasty schedule rest spot on here is not even really that bad. And I got to tell you, man, like, their biggest rest disadvantages were behind. They're in the books. They've been done, and they did well in those spots. The kind of clear and quintessential example of that was their win on Saturday at the Grizzlies. That was a gnarly spot for them. And they absolutely took care of business with a kind of a no doubt win. So I think they've proven that there's no kind of real obvious way that they're going to like trip up on the way in. And Daigneault winning Coach of the Year, if he gets to 70 wins, I think is happening. And maybe some of this depends on Cleveland going into sort of shutdown mode themselves. And the rest of Cleveland's schedule, as you kind of noted, there is a lot of road test on, remaining for them. And, there's also a world where, if let's see, like specifically that Celtics game on February 28th, if they lose at the Celtics and it's a compelling, like Celtics clearly take care of business, and the Celtics are the team that's coming on down the stretch, which they've kind of shown us that they are, it does that sour Kenny's case a little. I would say so. I think there's also a world where the Cavs have to keep winning to kind of stay one step ahead of the Celtics, but that gap is so big right now. I don't think that's very realistic. So them going into shutdown mode and losing games to the likes of the Pacers and the Knicks and the Pacers, last 3 games of the season as they're resting all their guys. Yeah, I'm there. There's a lot more kind of stumbling block spots as I look at the late portion of March and the early portion of April for this Cavaliers team than there is for the Celtics or the Thunder. And losing as you are kind of on the eve of the votes being cast never really leaves the voters with a good taste in their mouth. And if there's a 5-game margin between the Thunder and the Cavs, which is very, very, very possible, if not likely, in my opinion, I think 3 is likely, 5 is possible. 7 is sort of everything goes right, everything goes wrong. I don't know how you give it to anyone but Daigneault.
Yeah, I think that, and Bill Simmons talked about this, about how Daigneault should be getting a lot more attention for Coach of the Year, in that, he's probably going to win 65, 67 games while having missed his second best player for half the season, which is kind of ridiculous. I think that Atkinson has an incredibly high floor, and I think he's 85, 90% to win the award, just because it's just so likely that they're going to get to 60 wins. Like right now, the market is saying their median outcome is 63. And so even if they go, 17-12 the rest of the way and get to 60-22, like if that comes with the 1 seed, I think that he would probably be home. But if that comes with blowing the 1 seed and losing some marquee matchups down the stretch and kind of scuffling to the finish line, well, the way that Daigneault wins, because, given that he won last year and they were the 1 seed with 57 wins, I think that the way that he would win is the Cavs lose the 1 seed and the Thunder start getting into like kind of historic airs. And when you get to like 68, 69 wins, that puts you in pretty kind of historic company. And if that is combined with the Cavs losing the 1 seed, then I think that Daigneault can take it there. The best thing for Daigneault in a way is that the non-Atkinson field is just like completely thinned out. Like the Rockets have kind of semi-collapsed. Udoka's not a compelling candidate anymore after he had a brief surge in January. Like Taylor Jenkins isn't winning Coach of the Year, I don't think. Like why would he win? Given that this team, when healthy in years past, with Jar has been a 2 seed, 3 seed type of team. JB Bickerstaff would be a more compelling candidate if the team that he left didn't get significantly better the moment that he left, I think, which I think really hurts Bickerstaff. And then the other top teams in the East, like Missoula can't win. Thibodeau's not going to win. Rick Carlisle's not going to win. Ty Lue had a compelling case for a time, but the Clippers are now 6 seed. He's not going to win. So I do think that Daigneault is probably the second most likely guy to win. Like JJ Redick, I briefly thought about, but like Doncic is going to steal so much of the attention. Even if they got to a 2 seed, I don't think that Redick would win. So yeah, I think Daigneault is probably the second most likely guy to win. I don't think that means there's like a ton of meat on the bone, just because Atkinson has such a high floor and they are minus 500 to win the 1 seed, which I think is going to be pretty close to auto win. But yeah, Daigneault's a fun one.
What do we think of 1 seed probability for the Cavs? Like, do you have any appetite for the Celtics coming for that spot, or do you think that the margin's too large? Because I just want to throw out there are 5 non-trivial bad schedule spots for the Cavs left to go through this season. They got a back-to-back where they host the Knicks, a back-to-back where they host the Heat, at the Kings on a back-to-back, at the Pistons on a back-to-back, and at the Knicks on a back-to-back. So basically, like, all 5 teams where they're in bad spots, they are at a true rest disadvantage, and their opponents will care.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like they just have such a big lead banked. Like they're 6 games clear in the loss column. Now it helps that the final matchup between Boston and Cleveland is in Boston. And if Boston wins that game as expected, and Boston are going to be what, like 6.5 point favorites there.
I was going to say 6, yeah.
If they win that game, then they clinch the tiebreak over Cleveland. Just winning that game alone would make it 5 games different in the loss column. And so that kind of gets you into range. And Boston's schedule, off the top of my head, I don't think is very difficult at all. So, yeah, it's within the realm, but market is saying, minus 500 Cavs. So, 83% chance or whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, just given that they have such a big league banked. They're very good and they have such great depth. And the other thing, too, is like, if Boston's just going to keep doing this thing of just like resting Jaylen Brown or Tatum every other game, or like Drew Holiday is just not playing at the moment, Kristaps just probably won't play back-to-backs. Like, I don't think they're going to gun it and go all out for the 1 seed, which is the other issue. So, yeah. But still, like if the Celtics are between a 15 and 20% chance to win the 1 seed, that's a 15 to 20% world where Atkinson's Coach of the Year case takes a huge hit.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. The Celtics have the 3rd easiest schedule remaining by strength, opponent win percentage, and a lot of teams remaining left on their schedule who are not going to be trying to win in the month of March and April. Also, like for my taste, the way that things are spaced out, looking at the Celtics schedule, it feels like a heck of a runway to take care of business against the tankers and then really try to, sharpen your spear against the contenders. And I don't know. I would be a little bit, if I had Atkinson in pocket, I would be losing a little bit of sleep.
Okay, interesting. Well, I have Atkinson in pocket. I sleep okay. I think he's going to win. But yeah, I don't think it's 99% type of territory by any stretch. I think it's more around the 90% mark. I think the 1 seed is basically auto win. And there are worlds where if the Celtics track them down right at the end, but the Cavs are still like a 61, 62 win team, and they've only lost the 1 seed because the Celtics have gone berserk, I think Atkinson can still win in those scenarios as well. But yeah, it's not done. And if it's not done, then there has to be someone else who's viable to win. And even though I don't think there's a ton of meat on the bone on Daigneault at price, I do think that he is the most attractive of the challenges, just because he can differentiate himself with doing something fairly historic with the Thunder this season while missing his second best player for half the season. So yeah, Daigneault is interesting. Okay, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you tomorrow.